let's go Tennessee Titans with the win over the Houston Texans, 32-27. Titans move to 3-8. Texans fall to 7-5. Another game where just wild stuff happening down the stretch. And, impressive by Tennessee. We'll talk a little Will Levis and what happened there. But from a Houston perspective, you have to be really disappointed with this effort and coming away with a game where you have a pick six, 8 sacks of Will Levis, and you get the loss. There's a tweet about that.
I was going to say, the 8 sacks thing is pretty ridiculous.
It is.
Like, one of the things.
Let me just read it real quick from Josh Dubois, who, his weekly appearance on Check the Mic here. Josh says teams in the Super Bowl era were 51-2 in regular season and playoffs with 8+ sacks and a pick six before the Texans loss. The only other losses were the Browns in the 15-10 game against Mark Brunell's Jags in 2001. Bottlegate, that was the Bottlegate game.
It's always Mark Brunell.
It's always Brunell. And then the 99 Patriots 31-30 against the Dolphins. They had 2 pick sixes in that game. So yeah, Brunell's Jags in there.
Yeah.
In 01.
I mean, this is the thing when everyone's kind of ripping Will Levis and the team's giving up on him and they're in sell mode, they trade away DeAndre Hopkins, etc. Okay, he had kind of earned that, like he'd played his way out of future consideration by the way he played earlier in the season, the meme quarterback thing. But it is still a pretty crappy offensive line. He now doesn't have his number one target from earlier in the season, and that's bumped everybody up the depth chart one, which is the opposite of the way you want to do things. It's not like it's the greatest situation in the world for Will Levis, and in this game, the offensive line was getting wrecked. Like, Nicholas Petit-Frere on the right side is just a subpar offensive tackle. J.C. Latham, who's actually been pretty good this season, was going up against Will Anderson, so he was getting his ass handed to him in this game. So Levis getting sacked 8 times, okay, some of that is on him and the way he deals with the pressure, but a lot of it isn't. And to still have a reasonable performance and make a lot of good plays, and okay, one really bad interception in there, but like, you sort of forget that this is actually a pretty bad situation for whoever the quarterback is, and it is Levis in this situation.
Let's talk Levis for a minute here then. I went through all 8 sacks, for the context there.
For the context.
And especially for, like, I think we have like 2 different audiences sometimes, so I want to speak to both of them. We have our dedicated audio podcast and video, YouTube. You guys show up every single week and listen to us, and then these game recaps often go out into the ether, and we reach a newer audience and slightly different group of people. And I just want to encourage you, like, when you see a quarterback get sacked 8 times, it's not always on the offensive line. More often than not, we talk about the quarterback's role in there. But as you mentioned, there were some plays in here where J.C. Latham, I mentioned non-competitive before, some non-competitive reps.
I mean,
against Donnell Hunter and Will Anderson on a couple sacks.
There was one inside move in particular. Remember, like you said, training camp, Latham had struggled with inside moves.
Yes.
Preseason, it was a thing. I mean, Anderson, for at least one play, really got him with an inside move. It's like Latham wasn't even there.
He looked like he was looking for help that didn't exist.
Yeah.
That wasn't there.
Right.
So of the 8 sacks, there were definitely some plays where you can see the wheels turning in Will Levis's head, where he's like, Coach told me don't flip it. Coach told me don't do anything stupid. Coach told me don't do anything stupid. Like, he ran into a couple of them.
Yeah.
And they were, 2-yard loss, 3-yard loss. There's a couple plays where it's covered, and he's like, don't flip it. Don't flip it. You could tell.
Don't be a meme. Don't be a meme. Don't be a meme. Don't be a meme.
And so he's been sacked, Levis, 20 times in his last 3 games. So here's the dichotomy. Here's the challenge in figuring out Will Levis's performance. At one point yesterday, he had 3 incompletions. One of them was a pick 6, which was all his fault and a horrible misread.
Yep.
And he had been sacked 8 times. So when he's pulled the trigger, thrown the ball, overall it's been good. Still has the bad pick 6 in there. Some of the sacks are on him. Some of them are truly on the offensive line, and he's got no chance. I don't care who you are, you're not.
Yeah.
Like, he probably should have been sacked 4 or 5 times per game over the last few weeks. 3 or 4 times, whatever it is.
Which
and
is bad.
It's turned into 6, 7, or 8, right? So there's some Levis doesn't want to turn the ball over, and there's some the offensive line has no chance. But he also, over the last 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever the cutoff is, over 100 yards more than any other quarterback on those 30-plus yard throws. Hits Nick Westbrook-Akina for a 38-yard touchdown.
Again.
Hits Calvin Ridley for a beautiful 63-yard deep ball. Like, the the big plays have been a part of this Titans offense without Nuke Hopkins over these last few weeks.
This is kind of what I expected Will Levis to look like this season, right? Where there's still some bad in there, obviously. Like the pick six was a terrible play. It wasn't a meme play, but it was like the one earlier where he just like the Jair Alexander interception, right? Where he just stared down a guy that was always going to be there and threw the ball right to him. Or I forget what the other game was, but the other one where he literally came off the field being like, I never saw him. Like, I don't know where that guy came from. I literally never saw him. This was like that, where it's like he just threw the ball to a defender that was right in his pathway and either never saw him again or misread the coverage and assumed he was going to track somebody else and vacate the space that he was. He didn't. He just stood there and caught the ball that Levis threw him. Terrible play. But so you're going to get the bad in there, but you got the good to offset some of that bad. That's kind of what I expected Will Levis to look like. And earlier in the season, the real problem, I mean, the memes were obviously the thing everyone focused on, but the big problem is he wasn't offsetting those with anything. It was just, there's nothing happening here from a productive, positive standpoint, and there's at least one meme a week. That's terrible. That's why pretty quickly I think Callahan determined he's just not the guy. Like, I got nothing to work with here. I just got a guy who's making a catastrophe every 4 quarters or so, or 3, and there's no good to hang my hat off. I can't work with anything here. Now I think you're seeing quite a lot of good. I mean, he averaged 11.6 yards per attempt in this game. The deep pass again to Nick Westbrook-Akine, and then, okay, there's one really terrible play in there, but he's not alone in that. There's a lot of quarterbacks that make one glaring bad mistake-ish a game, but it's definitely steps in the right direction. I think it's probably too little too late for his career, if for no other reason than he was a second-round draft pick. They don't have the kind of investment, the kind of like sunk cost in him that a first-round pick does, where you just get a little bit more leeway and a little bit more time and benefit of the doubt. But this is kind of what I expected Levis to look like earlier in the year. It's just taken half the year to get here.
We'll talk about it. I think it's next game, talking about Carolina. Bryce Young looking better, Will Levis looking better, to the point where, as of 4 weeks ago, you would say, well, of course the Titans are going to be in the market for a quarterback, and they still might be.
Yeah.
And you would say, of course the Panthers are in the market for a quarterback, but Bryce Young's played well enough that maybe you're rethinking it. But to your point, Bryce Young, number 1 overall pick, even if it was a different coaching staff. With the Titans and Levis, it was like, all right, we'll take a swing in the second round, and we'll reset in 2 years if we need to. I think it's closer enough where you're at least rethinking things with Levis. The flow of this game, again, wild. I mean, the Texans have an 80-yard kickoff return to start the game. First play from scrimmage, 19-yard touchdown. The Texans are supposed to be the better team, supposed to be a powerhouse in the AFC. That kind of makes sense. Titans battle back. Titans are up 23-17, playing underdog, pesky underdog role. Levis throws the pick 6. Now the Texans are back up 24-13. They go up 27-13 because Fairbairn hits his 12th 50-plus yard field goal of the season. That's a record. So you want to eliminate all this great kicking stuff. You want to eliminate all of it.
Yeah,
then Levis,
what do you do later?
Because of what happens later. Then Levis hits Chigakonkwo, the tight end, for his only catch of the game for 70 yards. A little shallow cross, a little crossing route, weaves through the Texans' defense. Again, the Texans' defense, they're closing in on Brown's territory for me. Pass rush, a lot of they create difficult throws and make it difficult to navigate the pocket, and before you know it, they're busting coverages left and right and giving up big plays. So it's 30-27 Titans. Fairbairns now has a chip shot field goal opportunity to tie it late in the game, and he just misses it.
The other thing, though, so this was a bit like the Dallas-Washington game where the teams are just trading losing plays, right? They're trading plays to try and get blow the lead or blow the game across the board. I mean, so very first play of the game was like an 80-yard kick return by Dameon Pierce, where he runs into a brick wall and then just runs around it, and he's got 80 yards. Like, for the entire game, again, like that Dallas-Washington game, there's just botched plays all over the place. The Titans just another thing that doesn't serve Levis, like in addition to the meme plays and catastrophes, his timing isn't great. And I don't mean like the routine passing timing. I mean, when he makes the bad play, tends to be a bad time as well.
Yeah,
I don't know how controllable that is. Yeah. I don't know how controllable that is, or like whether it is actually a trait of his, or if he's just been unlucky that he's timed his bad plays for bad times. But like they botch an exchange with Tony Pollard, I think, when they're up 3 in a game where you're the underdog, you're trying to pull an upset. You can't just put the ball on the ground with a simple handoff. And I think, to be fair, that one was Pollard's mistake rather than his. But like Stroud gets picked off, you're like, oh, look, your defense made a play again. And that's when you give him the pick 6 right back. Come on, just keep it together for like 5 minutes. So I was going to get back to the missed field goal. In the long line of blown plays, the Texans had a touchdown, which they had taken off the board because of an illegal shift goof where 2 guys moved when only one was supposed to. They specifically were putting a guy in motion, and 2 of them went, and they snapped the ball.
Tank Dell and Joe Mixon.
And it looked like Mixon's goof based off how everybody reacted after that play. But the point being, they had a touchdown on the board and had it taken off because of a play a technical thing that didn't really affect the touchdown, which then ended up in that field goal attempt, which they then missed. That ends up being a 7-point screw up by somebody, probably Mixon. Like, that's a bad mistake.
Yeah, those last week they had the 70-yard touchdown by Nico Collins negated by illegal man downfield.
Somebody tweeted that Nico Collins has had more touchdowns negated than he has scored this season.
I believe it, dude. He looks so. I mean, he's back and he looks so good, so fast. He had a nice red zone touchdown in the game, and deep ball in the game. They had Tank Dell behind the defense early. I wanted to talk CJ Stroud really quickly because I thought early on he looked good. Second half though, end of the first half, he throws a pick. That was a miscommunication. I don't know exactly what was going on there. He was throwing a slant, so receiver was slowed up. And then the interception later was Stroud looking like Bryce Young in the pocket last year, right? Double clutch, throw the ball right to a linebacker. It was bad. Like, this was some bad plays from CJ Stroud in there, including that interception in the second half. Probably his worst.
Well, also, I mean, not just the interception, but so apparently he was asked about, the turnovers early in the week. And we kind of replied with, well, shoot or shoot. I got to keep taking the shots. Everyone misses them, blah, blah, blah. He's making the bad mistakes. I mean, he ran out of the end zone. He went full Orlovsky to basically end the game. Contrast that with the player from last year where he looked cool under pressure at all times, barely made any mistakes. Looked like again that Georgia game in college, the playoff game where he was basically flawless in the toughest of situations. He was that guy all the time. And this year, you're starting to see him regress more into the other version of C.J. Stroud from Ohio State, where actually when you put the pressure on, there were a lot of mistakes and a lot of errors. And, I mean, I just can't – that one play, the Orlovsky, full Orlovsky, you could not imagine him doing that last year. Like, it didn't compute with the player he was, where everything was cool. He always had the answer. For that guy to now reach the stage where he runs out of the back of the end zone to avoid pressure is crazy.
It's not a full Orlovsky.
It was pretty full Orlovsky.
There was more pressure than one guy. Face and a compressing pocket.
Yeah.
And it's 3rd and 17.
I think that's the only time that's happened. Like, get rid of it. Don't run out of the end zone.
It's like the
Orlovsky was under pressure too. Jared Allen was chasing him down. I know that because Jared Allen was pointing and mocking him when it happened.
Less unforced. I mean, there's no room to even step up as I'm rewatching this. There's a little bit. I mean, but he's got little chance here.
Get rid of it.
By the way, let's not forget Jimmy Garoppolo did it last year. More unprompted, or was it last year or 2 years ago? More unprompted as unprompted as Orlovsky.
Well, he only took like a step though. Like he only just touched out. So the thing that made Orlovsky so beautiful is that he just like ran right out of it and just kept going. I hadn't realized.
The pass blocking was poor here. And look, there's always confounding variables with QB analysis, but we're always like the level-headed, cautious people. But even as level-headed and cautious as we've been, I thought Stroud was so impressive last year. I'm like, all right, future star. This is the year. He should take that step forward. And it does look like he's regressed. And again, there's been injuries. There's been offensive line issues. but he's just not playing the same way, and especially over these last few weeks, not liking the way Stroud's playing right now.
No.
And I'm just going to say, if you're looking at year 2 quarterbacks over the last few weeks, Bryce Young probably playing the best football out of any of them. C.J. Stroud playing the worst football out of any of them. Between Anthony Richardson, Will Levis, C.J. Stroud, Bryce Young, just telling you. That's what I'm seeing, Sam.
Okay.
What do you think?
I'm remaining silent so that is entirely your take, not mine.
You can agree with it at any time.
Mm-hmm. Noted.
It's true over the last 4 weeks, isn't it?
Maybe.
All right. Do you have anything else on this? The Houston, I mean, again, from a Texans perspective, this is a tough one.
Yeah.
This is finding new ways to lose.
Yeah, that's
in a Titans special teams that wanted to, give it to you, right?
Yeah, I mean,
handed you a touchdown early on, handed you a pick six, Titans offense,
and a muff punt, right?
Punt.
Jaquan Jackson.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tennessee was actively trying to give this away for brief periods. It's just Houston was trying harder, and they they succeeded in giving it away the most. It is, like the Texans have been a weird team this year because every time you kind of look up, it feels like their record should be worse than it is, and now it's getting there because they've lost 3 of the last 4, and they are finding these ways to lose games, like historic ways to lose games, where every time they lose, there's one of those tweets, right? Where like teams are 87-1 in this specific scenario, and the one is Houston. Like the Lions. The Lions, Jared Goff with his 5 interceptions, they still won that game. 4?
It was 5, but 4 because of the Hail Mary.
Well, the Hail Mary, but there's also, the other one was off the hands of his receiver, et cetera.
I'm talking about the possession changes. There were 4 real possession changes.
Whatever. Point is, they lost the game where the opposing quarterback had 5 interceptions, and other things happen. Like they are finding these ways of losing weird games where they could or should be winning. Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.